Meantime, job creation nationwide rose by more than 300,000 in March. So tonight we're taking a look at Louisiana's job growth. Kenya Ross reports.
The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics recently announced that employment rose by 303,000 in March across the country. According to the report, the country saw job gains in healthcare, government, and construction industries. President and CEO Will Green of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry says the state needs to improve on developing skills, depending on the needs of industries largely based in a specific region.
If you're in Monroe, Louisiana, you know that it's a heavy pulp and paper and ag section of the state. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, we are one of the few states that is losing more population than we're gaining. And so it is critical that we enhance our efforts to find and develop top talent.
The State Business Association says its efforts to expand the labor force resulted in Senate Bill 293, which will provide a primary point of contact for workforce solutions.
We went out, we partnered with a lot of our local chambers, local businesses, as well as national organizations to see, what are other states doing better than we are? What do our local businesses need? And one of the things that kept coming up was really the need for a central hub to address workforce solutions.
A local staffing and recruiting agency says it has run into a mismatched skill set with candidates. And the agency would like to see more businesses and community leaders join together to solve this issue.
We're in a group called NELA MAC. And so what we do with that group is we identify needs that the community has and trying to work together to create a plan to develop the workforce for those needs. I think the candidates' expectations have changed. They're looking for more pay and better benefits and flexibility and working arrangements, and those demands are some that employers like WillSource and others just can't meet. Not every job can be done remotely.
Reporting in Monroe, Kenya Ross, KNOE 8 News.